Hey guys, I'm Francesca, and my mom lies for a living. Yep, you heard me right. My mom is a professional liar, and it's quite the story. Let me first take you guys on a trip down memory lane. I was born into a very rich family. My dad is a business mogul, and my mom used to work as a computer analyst. Life was great until mom and dad started having issues in their marriage. I came home from school one evening and found mom sobbing at the table. Normally, she would never let me see her cry. But this evening, she called me to come sit with her while she wiped away her tears. "What happened, Mom?" I asked. My mom then revealed to me that my dad had filed for a divorce. My whole world stopped for a moment. What would happen to us now? I had a gut feeling that things were about to take a turn for the worse. You see, my dad was the rich one, and mom never had to use her money for anything. And with this divorce, there was so much at stake. Dad didn't really care about us. By that time, he had already moved out of the country with some mistress. Even though the divorce was a rough time for Mom, she was back on her feet right after she got a new job. But that's when things got strange, like really strange. Mom changed her wardrobe and kept buying more and more stuff. Our house began to look like a reality TV destination. She worked odd hours, and it didn't matter how late or early it was. If she got a call, she was quick to respond. I had no idea what she was up to until one night when I happened to bump into her. Okay, let me tell you all about it. My mom ran a dating service where people called her to be their plus one, and they also paid her ridiculous amounts so she would keep up the charade. She was quite popular on social media, and this made her easily accessible by people who wanted her services. The idea to do this started as mere fantasy after she'd seen something similar on a TV sitcom. My mom was not your typical laid-back mom. She was pretty, with a flair for fashion, and you could call her the life and soul of every party. She recovered from her breakup with Dad quite quickly and became more radiant than ever. Her pretty stature and pretty face got her deals that you couldn't even imagine in your wildest dreams. Her first client was an NBA player. He reached out to her after her tweet on being a phony plus one blew up. "Hi, Rebecca. I have a dinner appointment and I need a plus one. Mind if I pay for your services?" he wrote in his direct message to her. Mom got really jittery, mainly because it was her first time, but she owned it like she always did. Mom was confident and chic, and her classiness was somewhat intimidating. She wore her most expensive jewelry on this date. At the time, I had no idea where she was going for the evening, but I remember how elegant she looked with all her jewelry on. Her date was so impressed with how much she fitted in with the crowd. It was like she was made for this, he said. Mom came home later that night, super excited. She had just received a check of $200,000 for looking pretty and stealing the attention of everyone. Her pictures were on the front pages of blogs and other talk shows. NBA star shows up on the red carpet event with a damsel. She kept her identity a secret and switched personalities to fit whatever roles she had to play. After her first lucky date, the demand for her services quadrupled. Mom was in and out of hotels, restaurants, schools, airports, you name it. All a person had to do was send a message describing what they wanted her to do or be, and she would enact the part. She would turn up as a pretend girlfriend or a fake lover, a personal trainer, a secretary, a personal assistant. She was perfect at acting the part. You're probably wondering where I was all this time. Well, I was having fun at school, living the dream teenage life with my mom always busy, yet still sending me funds for everything I needed. I barely missed my dad. I mean, he left us, so why would I miss him? I found out about Mom's job when she showed up at a club with the owner of the most popular Moscato wine brand in the country. She obviously didn't know I would be there. I lied to her, saying I was going to sleep over at my bestie's because of an assignment. We snuck into the club to have some girl fun, only for my mom to walk in at about 2:15 a.m. When she walked in, her hair was blonde and her figure was breathtaking. I didn't fully realize it was her until she spoke to the bartender. "Double shots, please," she said. It was definitely my mom. What was she doing here? And why was she dressed like that? I wasn't even afraid that she'd see me. I mustered up the courage and walked to her. "Hey, Mom. Hey, beautiful." She cut me off. "How can I help you?" she said. Could someone wake me up? I must be dreaming. This woman is actually pretending not to know me? I didn't snap out of my moment of daydreaming, even when she asked the bartender to get me and my friends free drinks and free slots to the VIP lounge. I figured something might be wrong, so I walked back to my table without a word. "Was that your mom?" Caroline asked. No. I thought it was, but she didn't recognize me. It's probably just my mom's doppelganger. After the incident at the club, Mom called me and told me to get my ass home. I didn't care that she sounded bossy on the phone. I had questions for her, serious questions. "You lied to me, Francesca. Why did you do that?" she asked. I shrugged and said I didn't expect to see her there. I mean, she had been all over this man, and everyone was calling her Gina. "Who is Gina, Mom? I have questions too." We sat down for hours, and Mom poured her heart out to me. I run a dating service where I get paid to play whatever role my date needs me to portray. Last month, I was in Vogue magazine with a popular NBA star. Last night, Mr. You-Know-Who needed me to make his ex-wife jealous. I do my job. I get paid. It's just business. I couldn't believe it. This had to be fiction. My mom was an actual call girl? So basically, you lie and pose as different people to make money? She giggled and said, "Yes, if you put it that way." I hadn't even begun to process all of this when she blurted out that a certain business mogul who was Dad's partner had reached out to her to attend a conference with him as his mistress. Dad was definitely going to be there, and this was a really sticky situation to be in. The deal was going to be her biggest check yet. But at the risk of her being disgraced or embarrassed publicly for being a mistress right after a nasty divorce, I put all sentiments aside and convinced Mom to do it. It was going to hurt Dad, but it would be worth it. He deserved every ounce of shame anyone could dish out. Mom took the deal, and we spent time shopping for the nicest dresses and shoes. If she was going to make an appearance, she had to look the part. On the 10th of that month, she showed up at the conference with her date. I sat across the room, playing the part of her personal assistant. I scanned the room to check for my dad, only to see him walk in hand with another woman. I wasn't ready for a sight like that. I took deep breaths to calm myself. Mom kept texting me that it was okay, and she had it all figured out. And she did. After the conference, Dad walked up to her table to say hello. I bet he couldn't resist how beautiful Mom was. Well, on the job you don't get personal with anyone. So Mom said hello and directed him to her personal assistant in case he needed her card. Yep, she actually did that. Dad walked up to me looking baffled. "Francesca, is that you? What are you doing here? I miss you." He was acting so fake, and I didn't buy any of it. I feigned a smile and said, "Hi, Dad. It is nice to see you, too." It wasn't, but I was an accomplice liar now. In no time at all, I began managing Mom's bookings, managing her profile, and even sticking up for her when she didn't feel like going out. Mom did a perfect job when it came to her line of work. She was a natural actress, starring in her own show. She was definitely made for this. This is how my mom lies for a living.
Hello, my name is Becca. Even though I'm still young, I went through something horrible most people never go through. I was jailed. I was sent away to a juvenile detention center. Now, I'm not trying to make excuses for the things that I have done, but I want to share the traumatic experience I had at such a young age. Let's just say that no teenager should ever have to go through that. My story started when I began taking driving lessons. I was really enjoying my lessons and was always excited for the next lesson to come. My boyfriend Dan was already driving, and he had a really fancy car that his parents had bought him as a gift. Dan was really nice. He drove me to every place you could think of in that car, and I always envied him for having a driving license, unlike me. Only if I knew that my love for that car was going to change my reality. One night, Dan and I were in his car around the neighborhood. I was telling him how much I was fascinated by his car. Dan then offered to let me drive it, but I laughed and said that I wish. But Dan was serious. He said that there was no one around, and just a driver on the block would do no harm. I refused at first, but Dan kept pushing me to do it, so I eventually agreed. And it was awesome. The car ran so smoothly, and I drove around the block like a pro. But it didn't stop there. I wanted more. I took us to another neighborhood, and I was having so much fun. I turned on the music to full volume and smiled and went a bit faster. I took a look at Dan. He was such a wonderful boyfriend, I thought. He looked back at me and smiled. When suddenly we heard a loud sound and I stopped the car immediately. Oh my God, I thought. I hit something. Dan and I got out quickly. We saw a man lying on the floor. He looked dead. Oh my God, what have I done? I was panicking. I can't even remember much of that night, but I remember that I hurried back into the car with Dan and drove off without thinking. Hours after, police officers were knocking at my door, and that was the night my life went downhill. Even though the man I hit didn't die, I was charged with driving without a license and a hit-and-run attempt. At that point, I had lost all contact with Dan. A couple of months after my 16th birthday, I was sentenced to a year in juvie. It felt like everything was spiraling out of control. I remember them putting me into a bus with a bunch of girls, some older than me, some much younger. It all seemed surreal to me as I stared out of the window. When I first entered the building, I noticed the number of guards standing around. It was unnerving to see them standing with a look on their face like they dared you to step out of line. The line I was in inched closer and closer towards the front until my name was called. I always hated going to the doctor, but this situation was different. They sat me down in a chair and asked question after question, each one more personal than the last. This was done while sitting next to a wide open door, a guard right outside, the line for the next girl not too far away, and other inmates and staff members walking past. To say that I felt exposed was an understatement. All the details of my life were aired out in front of strangers. After the seemingly unending questions, I was given a full examination. I thought the full-body pat-down by the man at the front was bad, but this was more touch, twist, and pull than I was comfortable with. The woman conducting the exam would keep saying, "Hold still," even though she was the one moving me, twisting my body into even more awkward positions, which would cause me to lose my balance. This earned me another stern look and a hard grasp of the shoulders. I was so happy when it was done, thinking that it couldn't get any worse. Then I met my roommate. She was a tall girl who must have been my age or a year older. When I entered, she gave me a look filled with caution and anger. The guard left, and she started to speak. She pointed her finger around the room. "This is my space, and it's been my space for years." Then she pointed to a small corner near the bed. "You can settle for that space over there." Her voice was absolute. She didn't wait for me to answer as she turned her back. I didn't want to cause trouble, so I sat there thinking about what I had gotten myself into and how the time would pass in this miserable place. The time I spent outside of my room was a nightmare. I was always the quiet type. I would rather spend my time alone than in a group. I wish I would have known that in juvie, it was the same as painting a target on your back. I got teased a lot. My things were thrown onto the floor, I was pushed from behind and tripped, punched, and even kicked. The treatment wasn't anything I wasn't used to, so I endured for a while until I had enough. I fought back and immediately got in trouble. The guards didn't help the inmates. Apparently that wasn't their job. Most of the time, they would turn a blind eye until it escalated from a scuffle to a full-out brawl. They seem to follow a motto: if we don't need to be involved, we won't. If we do need to get involved, you better hope you're not the reason. That's why most fights got resolved between the inmates. When the guards came to pull us apart, they pushed and pulled, then hit us until we complied. It felt worse than the actual fight. One time, I got in trouble with one of the inmates. She was big